Three, two, one, go.
And welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me tonight, as he usually is on Thursdays, is Gary Stein. But I want to tell all our viewers that Gary will be absent the next couple of weeks. He's got an exciting event in his family, a wedding of his only daughter.
Yeah.
So, we'll be missing Gary for a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Stanley.
We've got an exciting show tonight for you, and I've been excited to talk to this gentleman, and we are going to talk to the new head of the Maryland Stadium Authority in just a moment. He's new chairman of the Maryland Stadium Authority. That's Craig Thompson. But first, I just need to tell you a little bit about AJ Michaels. Expert and award-winning AJ Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. The AC season is coming up fast. New rebates and discounts are available. More at AJ Michaels. And we'll also tell you a little bit about the Costas Inn and crab season a little bit later on in the show. But first, we welcome in the new chairman of the Maryland Stadium Authority, Craig Thompson. Craig, thank you for joining us tonight.
Stan, Gary, thank you so much for allowing me to join you. I cannot tell you how excited I am. Big fan of the show, big fan of PressBox, and definitely honored to be here.
All right. Well, we're excited to have you and chat about this. Tom Kelso, I went in preparing for this interview with you. I said, I wonder what I asked Tom, last time. And it was clear that Tom would have loved to have stayed in this position, even though there was going to be a change in governorship, most likely, at the time we talked last May. I'm wondering, was he a help to you in the transition from the Hogan administration to the Moore administration and sort of passing the baton? I'd like to think that in this day and age, we can still have civilized, orderly transitions of power.
Absolutely, Stan. And let me just begin by saying congratulations, Gary. That's very cool, attending your daughter's wedding. I have two teenage girls, so I may come to you for some advice at some point in the future on how you handled it.
All I can tell you is save your money now. But yeah.
But Stan, you're right. Tom has been great. And Tom reached out before I was sworn in. We were talking generally when the nomination was made by Governor Moore. And since that time, he's been a great resource. We've connected several times on a number of matters. And, even today, I could pick up the phone or shoot a text, and he's made himself available. And I can say he's become a friend. He's done a great job. He's still a friend of the Stadium Authority, extremely committed to Maryland sports and Maryland economic development. As you both know, I've watched many of his interviews with you both. And he's become a great resource. I will add, as we're talking sort of about this fraternity, I've also had some connections with John Moog, John Morton, Bob McKinney, Carl Wright. So there's a really neat fraternity of folks who've served in this role. And I feel blessed to be able to pick up the phone and have some resources available.
I go back to the Maryland Stadium Authority and the creation of it, which I think it was created by Governor Schaefer.
Correct.
And it was really started with the mission of bringing a football team back to Baltimore. It's grown into so much more. Could you talk a little bit about that, the history of the Stadium Authority and where you see it going right now? Because it builds schools, it builds minor league stadiums,
Let me tell you, and when people say the Maryland Stadium Authority, they make that assumption. And I got to tell you, I've known of the Stadium Authority for many, many years, but did not know and was not appreciative of the overwhelmingly positive things we're doing in the state. And you're right, under Governor Schaefer, 1986, it created to make sure that we had a baseball team that would stay in the city. And so there was a desire to have the legislature fund a public a ballpark. Camden Yards was created. And then, of course, with respect to that dark day when those Mayflower trucks left the city, the decision was, hey, let's get a football team. And if you remember, there was a huge campaign about let's play ball, let's get it back for football.
Give
And
Baltimore the
give
ball.
Baltimore the ball. That's right. That's right. And so there, the Stadium Authority was then charged with, building the what was PNC Bank Stadium, M&T Bank Stadium, and the various iterations of it. Since that time, because of the management of both ballparks, the creation of these world-changing places for sports and entertainment, and doing projects on time, on budget, the legislature and various leaders throughout the state said Stadium Authority is really good at construction, really good at economic development. And so about 10 years ago now, our capital projects group was charged with what's called the 21st Century Schools Project. And so we started building schools, convention centers. We have the Blue Line Project in Prince George's County, doing demolition with our core program. So in the city where there's some blighted neighborhoods, we're working with, local and state companies to demolish some of the blighted homes and buildings. And so it really is a powerful and productive construction agency and a trusted partner with the state and state legislatures.
Gary, go ahead.
Craig, now that we're talking about history a little bit, I think it's important, since you're, basically pretty new in the position, the governor obviously is new in his position, to just maybe find out a little bit more about you. And I read up on you a little, as I'm sure you know what your profile is online, etc. Craig, you're quite a story. I mean, from East Baltimore, single mom, born and raised, to move up and to the position that you're in now, a very high profile position, not to mention your career, your ongoing professional career. Just talk a little bit about, yourself and about you elevating to this position. It must be very fulfilling for you to play a role in the economic development of a city that you were born and raised in.
Great question, Gary. And I really appreciate you framing it that way. As you may have read, and I talked about during the process of meeting with legislators and telling them a bit about myself, I was actually born on Super Bowl III. I was born on that Sunday.
Super Bowl Sunday.
When the Jets got lucky, and born in East Baltimore to a single mom. And it's been an amazing journey because I've spent significant time in both Baltimore City and in Baltimore County for middle and high school, lettered in basketball and baseball at Franklin High School in Reisterstown. And, because of a great village, great family, great friends and supporters, got accepted into University of Maryland College Park, graduated with 2 degrees in 1992, and then went to University of Maryland School of Law and graduated in 1995. But there's just been, Gary, an embarrassment of riches in terms of opportunities that have come my way. And it was about 25 years ago that I met a student at Johns Hopkins University. I was practicing law. I was a young lawyer and good friends with, at the time, former Mayor Kurt Schmoke, who had a young intern at his office in City Hall by the name of Wes Moore, who was a student at Johns Hopkins University. And former Mayor Schmoke said to me, I was practicing for a few years out at the time, I've got this young guy who's a superstar, and he needs to meet some young professionals who might serve as a mentor for him. And so he introduced me to Wes, and I quickly realized that although I was supposed to be his mentor, he was mentoring me. I mean, that's how brilliant he was, even in college. And we've just been fast friends since that time. He's been a little brother and great friend to me. But it's part of that story of overcoming obstacles, overcoming challenges, having people in your corner who say you can do it, and you having the nerve to believe it. That's kind of been my personal story, Gary. And there's just been so many opportunities along the way. I'm a partner at Venable and have been here for about 18 years and in the litigation division. And on paper, prior to that, you would not have thought that this kid from East Baltimore would be where I am now. And just to supplement the final part of your question, having the opportunity to play a meaningful role or meaningful part in the economic development, social construct of the city and ultimately the state, where I really have fallen in love and really want to do a great job for is the job of a lifetime.
I don't think there's any question that you will, and we are obviously supporters of that. But I did want to ask you, Craig, just to follow up, now that you've elevated to this position and you've done the things that you've been able to do, meet the people you've met, etc., are you in a position to impart that story and what goes into becoming that next level to the next generation, to the ones that are going to come after you, to give people hope and for them to understand what it takes to be successful?
Absolutely. Another great question. And one thing, and this may be, online as well. My daughters have told me that and my son have said that they've seen some videos and things of that nature. But I've been presenting at schools and churches, religious institutions, civic groups, for the better part of 30 plus years. Even when I was a student at University of Maryland, creating mentoring programs in school, but also accepting speaking engagements. Just a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to a government class at the Baltimore Leadership School for Young Women across the street from the Enoch Pratt Library off of Cathedral Street. So any opportunity that I can get to impart knowledge, to mentor, to answer questions, to be a resource, I'm fully embracing my role in that regard, and I'm very excited about it.
Wanted to move back into the arena a little bit, so to speak. House Bill 896, when it passed, it gave both teams, the Baltimore Ravens and the Baltimore Orioles, an opportunity to sign a lease extension that would give them the opportunity to get access to $600 million per franchise. The Ravens have signed their lease.
Correct.
Have they started to share with you some of the things that they want to do with their take in this, and how does it work? Do they do a couple things that might total 150 million for 5 years and then extend another 5 years to get another 100? How does that process work?
Well, the process, and it's a wonderful opportunity for me to talk about House Bill 896. Because it really was and is a great demonstration of the partnership between Stadium Authority, legislators, and their respective teams. And but it also demonstrates the support that the citizens of the state have, because that's a big ask.
Yes,
and,
it is.
And it demonstrates just how much and how important having successful football and baseball franchises are in our state. But the Ravens have already started the process. They've let out contracts for some of the smaller projects that they have. Now they've made public, and I don't want to speak for them.
Yep.
They've made public some of the things that they intend to do: luxury skyboxes, field skyboxes, social gathering places, and the like. But I think that they're probably better suited to discuss exactly what they want. But the answer to your question is they petition the legislature for certain funds for projects, and we vote on it, and the funds come, and there are opportunities for additional funds in the future. But in terms of the specifics right now, I feel that they're probably better suited to talk about some of the specific things. I'm familiar with what they've stated publicly, but they're still probably work in progress.
Now, I know you've just started in your position, but you've got two teams and you got two different sort of management styles. John Angelos is going to be very involved, like at the forefront of whatever he cooks up with Governor Moore, and tries to get done a larger than the $600 million that House Bill 896 will bring to the Orioles. But the Ravens are very different. When Dick Cass was there, Dick Cass handles all the negotiations. Of course, Steve Bisciotti's got to sign off on them. How's your relationship with team president Sashi Brown?
It's good. Sashi is a great communicator, very smart. I gather you all have met with him, so know that he knows the industry inside and out.
Sure.
Relationship is great with John Angelos as well.
Yep.
And, one thing that this position has allowed me to do is to just have a bit of credibility when talking with them both. And so I would say that both of them are extremely smart, care deeply about their respective teams, their partners, and the citizens and the fans, and want to do what they can, everything that they can to create the best fan experience that they can.
Let me just follow up with one thing. You got the football team, as important as it is day in and day out during football season, it's still eight or nine dates at the stadium. Baseball is vastly different. It's 81 dates. It's from April till, the end of September, and hopefully into more Octobers in the near future. Could you talk a little bit about how different that is in other words, I don't hear the Ravens, this is not a knock at the Ravens, that they want a live, work, and play environment, but the baseball team really wants to create something that's sort of a larger idea.
Well, if I'm hearing your question correctly, the priorities for the two ownership teams, or the two ownership groups, is really about creating the best fan experience possible. Yep. How does that happen? And there may be different business models in terms of how you create that. There's not a huge tailgating opportunity or platform for baseball games, for example, but that's a huge part of the fan experience for football. And so I think really the way we're framing this is, from both teams' perspectives, what's the best way to create the greatest fan experience, and how do we attract folks, to the respective ballparks to make that happen? Whether it's a live, work, play platform, or enhanced social gatherings, tailgating. I think it's really a similar thinking insofar as, we want to draw people to the complex. We want to draw people from both in-state and out-of-state to the complex. And how do we do that?
Craig, to underscore how important the new lease with the Orioles is, and how important baseball is to this town, the first trip that Governor Moore made out of state was with John Angelos and yourself to Atlanta to visit the Braves and see what they have going on there, Truist Park, and the area around Truist Park, which is a live, work, play area like you were talking about, called the Battery. Mm-hmm. So my question is, what did you see when you guys went down there, and what was your takeaway from what's going on down in Atlanta?
Well, let me say, and this is further to the point about kind of jumping in head first. And Stan, you mentioned that I've been in the job about 4 months now. Right. Just to give you a little bit of context as to what that week was like. March 6th was when the Senate confirmed my nomination and voted to approve it. Tuesday, March 7th, is when I chaired my very first board meeting. And so I got the materials late that night, and then read it and chaired my first meeting on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I left for Atlanta with so it was a busy first week.
And Friday you met me down at Ed.
And I met you in Sarasota that Friday. That's right. That was the highlight.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
But what we saw was an amazing example of what can happen with the combination of sports, entertainment, retail, housing, to draw as many people as possible over a long period of time, an extended period of time. And that area, the Battery, was amazing. There were a number of retail places, restaurants, places for children to play and for people to just walk and to congregate and socialize. I really enjoyed observing it and walking through that area.
It's not unlike, and I haven't been there, Craig, but it's not unlike what they built down in DC by Nats Park. My son actually has an apartment down there, and there are multiple places to eat, hang out. There's also some other fields where kids can play, etc., as well as apartments, condominiums, homes, etc. So I think something like that obviously would be great for Baltimore. Question, though, is the Battery, from what I understand, is more of a suburban location in Atlanta. It's not right downtown. Are there any different challenges or special things that you need to be aware of to make that concept work in probably what is a smaller footprint And if I'm not right about that, please let me know.
Well, the factual statement that you made is correct. That is that the battery is in a suburban area. Cobb County is the local jurisdiction that assisted with that, along with the state, and it was a true public-private partnership. And in Baltimore, if you're going to call it a challenge, the challenge may be simply, how creative can we be with the area that we have. That's really sort of the challenge that I see. Also, kind of connecting with the broader development downtown. I think we have a really unique opportunity to kind of revitalize that whole area and have the people in place, the leadership in place to do that. And so, when you're talking about, for example, David Bramble with Harbor Place and the renovation of Harbor Place, and as far east as President Street and down by Harbor Point, Baltimore Peninsula, that area, and then west toward the Hippodrome and University of Maryland, Baltimore, that area. I mean, that downtown area, not only where the ballparks are, but the surrounding area where some of the schools and hospitals are as well. I think that's really kind of where we're talking about in terms of what downtown can look like, not simply surrounding the ballparks, which is a very important part, but having that be part of a larger discussion regarding development.
We're talking with our guest tonight, Craig Thompson. He's the new chair of the Maryland Stadium Authority. We'll be back with some more questions, but I got an important question as I go into my commercial, Craig. Are you a crab eater?
So I'm from Baltimore, and it would be extremely irresponsible of me to answer anything other than a resounding yes.
All right.
And, but I love crabs. This is squarely in crab season, and my family and I have been eating quite a bit since the summer started.
All right. Maybe we'll get you out together with us. Maybe our families can do something together.
Would love that. Would love that.
At the Costas Inn. They've been located at the same location, 4100 North Point Boulevard, for over 50 years. They've been a friend of Pressbox and myself for over 35 years. I can vouch for this family. Great time, great atmosphere there. And if you are planning your first crab meeting of the season, get together with some friends. You got to have a little bit of a plan. You got to give them a call at 410-477-1975. Get a load on what's available, the price points, different sizes, but you're not going to be able to walk into restaurants and just order crabs. You got to reserve your crabs. All right. Costas Inn, good friends of ours for over 50 years. Here we go. All right. Craig, I wanted to touch base with you about another aspect of your job. I just heard this the other day. Is you've been named to the Maryland Racing Authority Commission. Can you talk a little bit about what that commission's purpose is? And is that different than the old Maryland Racing Commission? You are the governor's designee to be part of that authority.
Well, it's a 13-member authority, and the governor has several picks on there, and there are other leadership spots as well, Senate President, the House Speaker, and some of the other cohorts, the thoroughbred, the breeders. There are a number of selections to the authority, and it's the Maryland Thoroughbred Racetrack Operating Authority. That's the official name. And we're charged, Stan, with looking at studying the history of horse racing, the present condition of Laurel Park and Pimlico, and determining what's best for next steps in terms of renovation, improvements, construction surrounding the area, and coming up with a report that we submit to the legislature that asks the question, okay, where do we go from here? And so the operating authority will be looking at the operations of horse racing, Pimlico and Laurel, and making determinations about what's next and what's best.
I don't want to pin you down too much because I know you've just been attached to that operating authority for Maryland Racing, but it's interesting. The needle that they thread there isn't about being afraid you're going to lose a franchise. like the Orioles, if they don't sign a lease, they might leave. Because the Preakness, even if it moved from Pimlico to Laurel, is still in the state of Maryland. I don't think any of us want to lose it at Pimlico, but it's a very different needle to thread, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that that the authority will do. Horse racing in the state and in Baltimore in particular with the Preakness has a really, really strong and storied tradition. The Pimlico area is an historic area generally in Baltimore City. And it's one of those areas that that we love and want to see continue to thrive and grow. So if we're talking about sort of threading a needle, those are important conversations to have. There's been a commitment demonstrated by the governor and others to keep the Pimlico race track and Preakness in Baltimore. And the authority will continue to talk about that and determine in terms of either renovating, construction, and the like, what the next best steps are.
I want to circle back to the Orioles and Governor Moore and their conversations. And just like you did with the Ravens question, you said, I'll leave it to the team to come out and announce things. That's not your position. But from what you gather, time-wise, because people, I'm not one of them, because I have faith in John, a great deal of faith in John Angelo's and trust that he is true to his word. Time-wise, when do you think something could get done? Because their signing the lease isn't the same as the Ravens signing a lease. There isn't this bigger, wider berth that they're trying to do.
Well, one thing that being an attorney, as you identified, helps me to do is to discuss the importance of discretion in conversations and
you're good at this.
And being deliberate about
He's had some practice.
Now there's a lot more that John is trying to accomplish than just merely signing the lease that gets 600 million. I think he's got, this is again, no knock on the Ravens. I think John has a much larger vision. And I guess my question really is, are Westmore and John Angelos kind of in lockstep on having a wider vision of what Oriole Park can do to the live, work, and play environment?
No, that's fair. And the best response is the one that refers to what both have stated publicly. And both have stated publicly that they want the team to stay in Baltimore. They want to create the best fan experience that they can. And they want to do what's best in terms of the financial viability of the city and state and do it in a financially responsible way for the citizens of the state. And I'd have to double click that. I think the best evidence that we have is what we've seen and what we've heard stated publicly. And in terms of kind of where things are moving, I can say, and I feel comfortable saying that the oars are down and we're moving in the right direction. But in terms of any details, that's something that I think is best, best left with the discussions that are being held, so as not to disrupt the process.
Fair enough.
Craig, your timing is impeccable, by the way, because you come to this position in a season where the Orioles are just starting. I mean, they're just having a terrific year, and obviously we hope it continues. But anytime that you've got a successful team like that, that makes that fuels the negotiations and makes people really want to come to the table. But I wanted to circle back to the Pimlico Laurel thing quickly. This work, live, play concept that you saw down in Atlanta, and you want to bring, the governor wants to bring to Baltimore here at Oriole Park. Is that same concept what you would try to do at either Pimlico or Laurel? Do you want to try to make those, or at least one of those places, a work, play, live situation?
If I could just interject, which is what in Florida racing, Gulfstream Park is exactly what we're talking about. It's like the Battery,
Yeah, no, and that's a great point, but it's also consistent with what the operating authority is charged with doing. Looking at not just the track, but the surrounding area, the surrounding communities, and making the determination as to what types of studies might be done to see what's possible, to see what's feasible. Going into the process, I don't think we should have a framework of this is what we want it to look like. I think it should be the opposite. We should look at it and then make a determination as to what it can be. So, I don't want to prematurely speak on behalf of the authority and say that we do want to have something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not part of the discussion. But it's hard to say at this point. I think right now we're thinking big and thinking out loud, and doing so in a way that says, all right, this is what is possible in Baltimore and in Laurel, and in these various areas.
And Craig, this may be a little bit premature also, but do you think it's possible for both tracks to thrive? That we can have a thriving Pimlico and we can have a thriving Laurel?
I think it's possible, but the death is in the details. And so, we're talking financing, we're talking land, and we're talking the ability of the land and the community to embrace it. I certainly wouldn't remove anything from discussion. I think that'd be, unfortunate to do that. But, if it's possible and desirable, I think the answer could be yes, but we have to determine what both can manage and maintain.
Mm-hmm.
Craig, before we finish up, I wanted to ask you one question. When I went back the other day and watched that video with Thomas Kelso, he was talking about the fact that HB 896, what brought it about really is the age of the stadiums right now, and the fact that the baseball lease was expiring after, signing that lease that led to the building of Camden Yards. What is the life expectancy, if taken care of properly, which Maryland has done a fantastic job at keeping those ballparks looking good and operational in all aspects? Are they 75-year ballparks? Are they perhaps even thinkable at 100 years that they could last? Because Thomas mentioned that. He says, who's to say that Camden Yards doesn't become the next Fenway Park or Wrigley Field? Your thoughts on that?
Well, and that's one of the additional benefits of 896, because it speaks into existence a recognition that ballparks don't last forever, and it provides the financing, the funding for those renovations to make it the 21st century, 22nd century as it comes. The ballpark itself is now decades old, a few decades old, and in terms of the life expectancy of Camden Yards, don't feel qualified to state what the life expectancy is, but I do feel comfortable saying that there's a dedication from the Orioles, from Stadium Authority, to continue enhancing it and making it the best ballpark that it could be, to create the best fan experience. And I strongly believe that with either 896 or with other opportunities, we can continue to make those changes, the renovations to the ballpark that will continue to make it the best ballpark in the country.
Had one last topic to bring up, and I don't want to embarrass you or put you in an awkward situation. You and I share a friend, and his name is Terry Hazeltine, who's been the executive of Maryland sports going on about 14, 15 years now. It's a pretty remarkable run he's had.
Great guy.
If you could talk a little bit about what his successes, things like the cycling classic, bringing NCAA lacrosse here, Army, Navy, big time soccer matches. What does that do to the overall view of sports in Maryland, and how important is it?
Yeah, well, it's not embarrassing me or putting me in a tough spot, because anytime I can talk about Terry, I'll take that opportunity. And that's opened the door, Stan, for me to at least give a quick shout out to the amazing staff generally at the Stadium Authority.
Yep.
Mike Friends, Gary McGuigan, Al Tyler, Eric Johnson. I don't want to start naming names, but I will say that over the last 4 months, I've learned to truly and deeply appreciate the talent and the professionalism of the staff and the members and the leaders at MSA. Great job, great people. And the reputation of the Stadium Authority is what it is because of the great folks who work there. In terms of Terry's work, Terry is, as you know, a firebrand.
He's like those TV commercials. He's a rock star.
He's a rock star. He's all over the place. I thought I got around the state.
Yeah.
Whether it's a meeting or going to CFG Bank Arena or Pimlico, Preakness. I see Terry everywhere, and everyone speaks very highly of him. And Terry's been a great resource for me as well in terms of understanding, and this is consistent with Governor Moore's priorities as well, understanding how sports and entertainment are important as part of the economic lifeblood of the state, making Maryland a destination for sports and entertainment as an economic driver, of course, in terms of entertainment, but as an economic driver. And you mentioned the Cycling Classic, Maryland five-star
coming up. Yep.
Coming up. We just got an extension of the CIAA basketball tournament.
Yep.
Terry's in the middle of all of those things, and has made such a huge impact in bringing sports, also focusing on youth sports.
Yeah.
And the economics of looking at youth sports. My kids played sports. My daughter played lacrosse for many years, club lacrosse, and my son played club soccer. And we would go to these tournaments in different states, and we'd spend the whole weekend in New Jersey and Delaware and Virginia, and we're spending money there. In the hotels, in restaurants, and entertainment. We want Maryland to be that kind of a destination as well for youth sports, bringing people from out of the state to see how great things are in the state of Maryland. Terry's right in the center of that, and so I can't. I've been sitting too quietly, and then the lights went out.
I thought it meant that our time is up. Turn off the lights.
That's right.
Hey, I really appreciate your joining us, and can we do this again in a few months?
I'd be honored. Honored.
All right, Craig Thompson. He is the new
Thank you, Craig.
of the Maryland Stadium Authority under Governor Wes Moore. We thank you for coming on. Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson, and I will be back Monday evening to talk some baseball. For now, for Gary Stein and Craig Thompson, I'm out of here. Bye, guys.
Thank you.